Hi, in this video we are going to cover Power Automate for beginners. So if you're starting out with Power Automate, this is a short video that will help you with that, okay? So this is the flow we are going to create today. It's a simple flow that gets the forecast, the weather forecast for tomorrow and sends it to a user in Teams. So I have already done this before because I was testing, but we are going to do it by scratch here. Okay, so the first thing we got to do is go to powerautomate.com. It's going to redirect you to flow.microsoft.com. It's okay. And this is our homepage for Power Automate. Here we can start choosing a template, and I highly advise you to check templates so you get new ideas on what you can do with Power Automate, and you can see how these flows were brought together, and you can see how to use the connectors and everything. So here you can search for by app, by task, by industry, or you can go to all templates, and you're going to be brought to this page, and here you can search for remote work, approval, and so on. You have a whole series of templates here that you can play with, okay? But in this case, we're going to create a flow from scratch. So I can teach you the concepts of Power Automate and everything. My user here doesn't have access to any flow, so we're going to create the first flow here, and we go to new flow, and in this case we are going to choose an instant flow, which means we are going to run it when we want. So in a click of a button, we are going to run our flow. I'm going to briefly talk about the automated cloud flow and the scheduled cloud flow because they are used very frequently as well. So the automated cloud flow acts like a trigger. So you can have a trigger from SharePoint, from Forms, from OneDrive, from Planner, from basically anywhere. When you have a connector, you will have a trigger as well. So let's say we want a trigger from Twitter, for example. So when a new tweet is posted, we can grab it from its hashtags, from its user, and then we can perform a series of actions later with this data. So here, it's up to you if you want to use an automated flow, which acts like a trigger, or a scheduled cloud flow, which acts recurrently. So if you want daily, if you want from 5 to 5 minutes, you can configure it. But in this case, we are going to create an instant cloud flow, and we're going to run manually. So whenever we want, we are going to run this flow, and it will perform its operations, its actions. We have other instant flows. So if you want to run from Power Apps for a specific message in Teams, we have other possibilities here. But in this case, we will stick to this first one, and we'll call our flow get weather forecast for tomorrow. Okay, so let's create it. And this is our flow. This is the page where we are going to create the actions and see what's going on. And the flow is going to, whenever we add a new step, it's going to be showing here in the bottom, and they will be adding in this sequence. Okay, so first of all, I would like to mention about the actions, triggers, and connectors. In this case, the trigger, it usually is the first one, so we'll focus on actions and connectors. Actions, they are inside connectors. So each connector has its own actions. For example, if I go to connectors here and I choose Microsoft Forms, I will see the actions for Microsoft Forms. So here in this text box, we can search for both connectors and actions. I would like to talk about really quickly about the control connector, which is a really important one, because here we can perform conditionals. So if something happens, we go this way, or then we go the other way. We can apply iterations here, so apply to each. So if you have a table of results, for example, and you want to perform the same operation in all rows of the table, we can use this one to do it. Another one I would like to mention, another connector is the variables. So here inside variable, we can perform some operations with the data. So we start with a value, and then we increment it, decrement, change the value. So these variables are really useful here. And the data operation ones. So let me show it. Here we can manipulate our data as well. in this video, we're going to use the compose because I think it's a great way to know what's going on in our flow. And then once we are going to test, we can see the data, okay? Okay, so the first action we are going to insert here is to get the actual weather forecast. So we can get for today or for tomorrow. So the connector is called MSN weather, and the action is called, in bold here, get the forecast for tomorrow. So we click it, and then we just have to input the location and the type of unit. In this case, the location, it can be a city, a region, a state, a country, landmark, and so on. We'll start with the region here, and you can see here to the right is we can type here, of course. So if you want to say, for example, France, it's going to get the weather forecast for tomorrow in France. It's going to get a specific point in France, and we can be more precise. So if you want to say Paris, it's going to bring us the forecast for tomorrow in Paris. But I'm going to use here these properties here, because when we run the flow, when we trigger it, it automatically brings this data for us. So the username of the user who started the flow, the user email, the current date, the address, the country, region, city, state, and everything. So in this case, I'm going to use my city. Okay, and the units, I'm going to use the metric one because I'm more used to it. Okay, but in this case, we could create a conditional, so to say, and let's say if we get, so if we are based in the United States, we use imperial, otherwise we use metric. So this is a logic we could create here with the conditional I showed beforehand, but let's use the metric one. Okay, let's save, and now how can we test it? So we saved our flow, and here we can quickly test it. So let's hit test. Let's choose manually, test. Okay, it's the first time it's going to ask this. So let's continue and run flow. Okay, so it's done. Now we can see the results. So when we click here, we can see what was inside the operations here. So this was the input. So this is where I'm based at, here in Brazil, São Paulo. And the unit I chose, and here the output. So here we have the max wind speed, the high humidity, the low humidity, the temperature, the highest value it will get, and the lowest value it might get. So, and we have here a series of information that we can use in our flow. Okay, so this is great. This is something we wanted. Now let's continue editing. And to create a Power Automate, I usually goes like this. So I do it step by step. I check what's going on with the data, and then I continue I proceed with the creation of the flow. Let's show you the compose, which I mentioned. It's an important one to see what's going on. So if you want to manipulate data, so I want to say that about the temperature. So I'm going to, now you can see here to the right that we can use that information I showed when we were testing. So all of the values here, so the temperature, units, the location that we got from the get forecast command, we can use here. So let's search for temperature. So let's say the temperature in, let's use a city, will be from, will stay from temperature low. Now we use the units, right? Because it's only going to show the number. So 5 degrees to 14 degrees. The temperature in Osasco will stay from tomorrow. Okay, let's hit save, and let's see what happened here. Let's test it again. So hit test, and run flow. So now we can see the value from the compose action. So the temperature in Osasco will stay from 5 degrees to 14 degrees tomorrow. Great, this is what we want. Now let's send this information to our user in Microsoft Teams. So let's edit again. Let's add a new step. Let's choose Teams here. And let's choose post a message as the flow bot not to a channel, to a user. To a user here. Post a message as a flow bot to a user. We can have other options here, but in this example, we are going to show this one. Oops, not team. I chose team. Let me remove it. Okay. Teams. Okay, here to a user. The recipient, let's use the user email, the user who started the flow. We can type any other email here as well if we want. The message, let's choose the conditions, which will be the title of the message. So it's rainy, if it's sunny, if it's just a short word. And, oh, sorry, let's do the opposite. So the message will be the output from the compose action, the text we have composed here, and the headline would be the conditions. Great, so let's save. And now instead of test, let's run it. Basically, it will act like the same, but let me show you how to run and show another page from Power Automate. So I hit the back arrow, and now we can see here the overview of our flow. Here is where we can edit it, we can save as, we can share, we can perform a series of operations. We can see the past runs, and here we can run it. So let's run. Let's continue. Let's run flow. And let's change to our, oops, done, okay. Let's change to our Teams tab here, and we got it. So the temperature in Osasco will stay from 5 degrees to 14 degrees tomorrow. And this is it, right? So with this, you can start creating your own flows. You can play with the connectors, you can play with the templates, and based on your creativity, you can create whatever you want, okay? Hope you liked this episode, and see you next time.